Hi, it's just David's here with a message for Easter. Um, I know sometimes I've been accused, and well, we all do it, don't we? Sometimes when we slightly give away the end of a story, perhaps sort of a film or a book or something that we've loved, and we're telling a friend about it, and of course, if we're not careful, we take away the thing that might kind of hook them in because actually we're saying it's great, and then the trouble is we tell them too much of the plot, and they would have then gone to perhaps look at it or read it or whatever, but yeah, we've gone and spoilt it for them by telling the ending, and we kind of have to hold ourselves back sometimes and remember not to do that because because we're enthusiastic about whatever it is that we're trying to get them to watch or to read or whatever. Um, and I wonder whether, also our attention spans are getting shorter. Perhaps you've already turned this video off. I don't know. But I mean, what they tell you now, don't they? If you're going to do any of this sort of stuff on social media, this sort of be an influencer or whatever. I mean, keep it short, and some of the sort of social media platforms limit the number of characters or length of a video, or whatever, to keep it short, keep it brief. If it goes on too long, people won't read it or think about it or look at it because attention spans are shorter. And if you look at kind of the way that scenes and soap operas work and news reports and things, everything is to kind of condense it to move on quickly to the next thing. And of course, in a way, that's understandable. We're busy and we need the BBC headlines. We need other news readers are available, but we need we've got sort of 3 or 4 minutes to get the kind of general gist, and we don't need a load of analysis at that point. So it's kind of horses for courses. But of course, there are dangers in that. There's huge dangers in that, I think, and not just in terms of needing kind of more analysis of stuff and shying away from sort of more complicated problems and bigger issues, but things like sort of awful events in Ukraine. There can be a sense of, oh, still going on about Ukraine. Well, it's still sort of fairly awful, and it's going to be awful for a while, and certainly there's going to be repercussions of it for a while. It isn't all going to be over quickly. I mean, one of the things we learn from history, isn't it, that that those wars that we thought would be over by Christmas aren't. Now, I'm not saying anything about the Ukraine situation, but the simple thing is we don't know, and sometimes we kind of want to cut to the end. What's the end game? And actually, one of the most difficult things is saying, well, actually, at the moment, we don't know. I say all this, of course, this is the Easter message, because I mean, one of the things about Easter is, of course, we know the end game. Jesus rises from the dead, and that can become a bit, like I said there, a bit sort of preempt. You just say it. That's it. Let's sort of, we're not going to worry too much about Monday, Thursday, Good Friday. Let's not worry too much about the cross because that's a bit difficult. The service is 3 hours, and you have to sort of venerate the cross and that sort of stuff. Let's get to the eggs and the bunnies and the chicks and the little lambs and everything else. Let's get there. And of course, it's a sense of getting there. That's great. Of course, nothing wrong with that. But of course, human life isn't quite like that. And imagine, this is how the disciples imagine how they felt. I mean, this is the point of the gospel narratives that they're not sitting there thinking, oh well, 3 days we'll be back. They've given up. There's a very good bit where Peter just says, oh, I'm going fishing. I'm going back to my old life, in other words. They plainly just become disillusioned. They've given up on the road to Emmaus. They really don't get it. They don't expect it because, yeah. And who can blame them? Well, you followed a very charismatic leader. You're not kind of fully grasped everything he said. He's taken away. He's tortured. He's killed. You're feeling a bit guilty because you've kind of abandoned him. And you think, oh well, dear. Life goes on in a sense. And one of the things when I was in Rome, looking at St. Peter's in Rome and the sort of enormous, I mean, not just of Peter, but obviously a huge basilica, but with the sort of the statues of the apostles. saying, of course, just extraordinary that they should be there. Think how they were on sort of Holy Saturday. The idea that they would be sort of cast in marble, 60 feet high in the greatest church in the world, 2,000 years later, just sounds bizarre and odd. We can't cut to the end of the story in that way. So I think there is something really about sort of knowing the depths of Good Friday in order to know the heights of Easter Day, and not try and cut to the end of the story, but not because want to he's going on about Good Friday, it's always a bit depressing, but actually because it makes Easter Day more of a thing. It's more of a sort of true joy. And I think also that assurance that we get at Easter, that even in the midst of everything, and this is particularly relevant with Ukraine and some other pretty bad things going on in the world, that in the end, love and good will win out. I mean, God's victory is assured. It's not a kind of it's not kind of, well, we're in the midst of the battle, we'll see how it goes. I mean, we have been told the end of the story, the victory of Jesus Christ as God raises him from the dead. We're shown a glimpse of the end game, but it is a glimpse. We're not there yet in this world. It isn't a case of just around the corner, all will be well. It is a case that, but nonetheless, we are assured that there is an end game, and it is, the triumph of love, good, and God over hate and death. One of the sort of, again, the sayings that people quote is Julian of Norwich, or all will be well and all manner of things will be well. And again, I mean, it's a fantastic quote. Nothing else. It's a fan of Julian of Norwich, but it can be quoted too glibly, and one needs perhaps to look at the facts of Julian's life. I mean, it comes from Revelations of Divine Love. It's a sort of account of various revelations we had of her. It's the first book that we have written in English by a woman, so it's quite a so we're talking sort of 14th, early 15th century. So it's quite sort of historical piece. But the point of Julian's life, and we don't really know her name, by the way. It's just that she lived as a sort of anchoress, which is like a hermit in the St. Julian's Church in Norwich. So we don't know her name, but whoever she was, Julian of Norwich, as we know her, she just had, frankly, an awful life. I mean, the whole point of the Revelation of Divine Love is both politically at the time, there were great upheavals going on, bloody sort of civil conflicts and indeed international wars going on. And also, she herself personally had the most terrible illnesses from which she wasn't expected to recover. I mean, I thought she would die. And it's after that, and in the midst of that, that she has these revelations of divine love. She's granted these sort of visions, and she, and out of that, she comes out with that famous saying, which is just, of course, it's a couple of lines: "All will be well, and all manner of things will be well." And so I think it's the same thing. I mean, it's worth quoting. I mean, it's very quotable because it's absolutely true. It is the final truth. It's the end game. It's the yes, all will be well in Ukraine. All will be well, and all manner of things in this world, in this universe. All will be well, and all manner of things will be well. But that doesn't take away from the fact, as with Julian of Norwich's life, that there's all sorts of difficulties and suffering to go through. It's knowing that in the midst of what's going on. So this Easter, it's great Easter joy, of course it is. And it's knowing that Easter joy, not kind of in spite of or ignoring the bad things that are going on, but in the midst of it. It is sort of sitting in Mariupol or Kiev or whatever, and knowing and saying, without being glib, all will be well and all manner of things will be well. It's actually in the midst of those awful things, being given a glimpse of the end game, but still kind of holding that suffering. So I think really important to understand the truth and the depth of Easter joy, that it doesn't kind of skirt round these things. It is so joyful, it's so glorious. Actually, it overcomes them. But there is a sense in which in this world we also sit with them. But actually, that doesn't diminish the joy. It makes Easter joy all the more complete. Thank you.